When people imagine the Roman Empire at the height of its power, they tend to picture legions bristling with iron. Disciplined soldiers advancing behind shields, siege engines pounding city walls into dust. Steel, stone, and fire dominate the popular image of Roman dominance. Yet the true foundation of Rome's supremacy was not forged in a smithy, sharpened on a whetstone, or hurled from a catapult. It was far simpler and far more pervasive. Rome's most powerful weapon was not metal at all. It was organization. For centuries, historians sensed this truth intuitively. Only recently, however, has modern science, particularly research in systems theory, network analysis, and cognitive science, fully validated just how decisive Rome's organizational genius really was. What the Romans mastered was the art of coordinating people, information, and resources at a scale no society before them had ever achieved. Steel may win a battle. Organization wins centuries. Power beyond the sword. The Roman army was formidable, but it was not invincible because of superior weapons. Roman swords were not dramatically sharper than those of their enemies. Their armor was not universally stronger. In many cases, Rome's opponents, Celtic warriors, Parthian cavalry, Germanic tribes, possessed weapons that were just as lethal and sometimes more innovative. What Rome possessed, instead, was a system. Every legion was built on standardized units, each with clearly defined roles. Soldiers trained not merely to fight but to function as interchangeable parts within a larger machine. When casualties occurred, replacements could be integrated quickly because procedures, commands, and expectations were uniform across the empire. This modularity, as modern engineers would call it, allowed Rome to absorb losses that would have shattered less organized societies. Modern military science confirms this principle. Studies of complex organizations show that systems with standardized components and clear hierarchies outperform those reliant on individual brilliance alone. Rome understood this instinctively. A Roman legion did not depend on heroic warriors. It depended on reliable ones. Roads, the arteries of control. If organization was Rome's weapon, roads were its delivery system. Roman roads are often admired for their durability, but their true significance lies in what they enabled. These roads were not built primarily for trade or tourism, they were built for control. With a vast and carefully maintained road network, Rome could move legions, messengers, tax collectors, and administrators with unprecedented speed. Orders from Rome could reach distant provinces in days or weeks instead of months. Reinforcements could be dispatched before rebellions had time to spread. Information flowed faster than fear. Modern network science has demonstrated that power in large systems depends less on raw strength and more on connectivity. Highly connected networks respond more effectively to crises and adapt more quickly to change. Rome's road system functioned as a physical internet, linking distant regions into a single operational space. The empire did not merely conquer territory. It synchronized it. Law as a weapon. Another pillar of Rome's non-metallic power was law. Roman law was not just a set of rules. It was a unifying language. From Britain to Syria, citizens and subjects alike learned to navigate Roman legal concepts, property rights, citizenship, and obligations to the state. By imposing a consistent legal framework, Rome reduced internal friction. Disputes could be resolved through courts rather than constant violence. Trade flourished because agreements were enforceable. Loyalty increased because people could appeal to a system rather than the whim of a local strongman. Modern behavioral science confirms that predictable legal systems increase cooperation, even among strangers. Rome turned this principle into an imperial strategy. People who benefited from Roman law had a stake in the empire's survival. Obedience was no longer based solely on fear. It was reinforced by incentive. Bureaucracy, the quiet force bureaucracy, is rarely celebrated, but it was one of Rome's most decisive advantages. Census taking, taxation, record-keeping, and administrative correspondence formed the backbone of imperial governance. Rome knew who lived where, what they owned, and what they owed. This data-driven approach allowed the empire to extract resources efficiently without collapsing local economies. Taxes were standardized. Grain shipments were calculated, military supplies were tracked. Governors were monitored, at least in theory, through reports and audits. Modern organizational science shows that institutions capable of collecting and processing reliable information outperform those that rely on guesswork or tradition alone. Rome's bureaucracy transformed knowledge into power. An empire that knows itself is far harder to overthrow. Culture as infrastructure. Rome's influence was not enforced solely through soldiers and officials. Culture itself became a tool of expansion. Latin spread as a shared administrative language. Roman architecture reshaped cityscapes. Public baths, forums, and amphitheaters became symbols of belonging. This cultural standardization reduced resistance. Conquered peoples were not merely ruled. They were integrated. Local elites were invited to participate in Roman governance, to adopt Roman customs, and eventually to claim Roman citizenship. The empire grew not just outward, but inward. Cognitive science helps explain why this worked. Humans are deeply influenced by shared symbols, rituals, and narratives. By embedding Roman identity into daily life, the empire created psychological loyalty that swords alone could never enforce. Logistics, the science of survival. Rome's ability to supply its armies over vast distances remains one of its greatest achievements. Grain from Egypt fed the city of Rome. Weapons manufactured in one province armed soldiers in another. Uniform equipment reduced complexity, while centralized planning minimized waste. Modern logistics theory emphasizes that wars are won not by those who fight best, but by those who supply best. Rome mastered this truth long before it was formalized. Its legions marched not just with weapons, but with schedules, inventories, and contingency plans. When supply lines failed, Rome faltered. When they held, Rome endured. The empire's longevity was not an accident, it was a logistical triumph. Modern science catches up in recent decades. Researchers studying complex systems from corporations to computer networks have rediscovered principles that Rome applied intuitively. Decentralized authority paired with centralized standards. Redundancy without chaos, flexibility within structure. These are the hallmarks of resilient systems. Rome did not possess modern terminology, but it practiced modern thinking. Its power lay in aligning human behavior at scale. Steel may have enforced Rome's will, but organization made that enforcement sustainable. The fragility of the invisible weapon. Ironically, the very weapon that built Rome also contributed to its decline. As the empire expanded, its systems grew more complex and harder to maintain. Bureaucracy bloated. Communication slowed, loyalty fragmented. When organization failed, steel could not compensate. This, too, aligns with modern scientific insight. Complex systems require constant maintenance. When coordination breaks down, collapse can occur rapidly even if outward strength appears intact. A lesson that endures. The Roman Empire's greatest weapon was invisible, silent, and profoundly human. It was the ability to organize millions of people around shared rules, expectations, and goals. Modern science has finally given language to what Rome demonstrated through history, that the true source of power is not force alone, but structure. Empires rise and fall, technologies evolve, weapons change. Yet the lesson of Rome endures. Those who master organization, who understand how to align individuals into resilient systems, wield a power more enduring than steel. Rome proved it. History confirmed it. And science at last explains why.